everyone, it's Megan. I'm a certified fertility awareness educator, and today we're talking about green flags to look for in your relationship and with your partner in terms of learning fertility awareness for natural birth control in a way that is safe, emotionally safe. So we've talked in another video about red flags and what coercive control is and how that can be incredibly dangerous and unsafe and abusive in those types of situations. And we also reviewed a little bit about tips in terms of starting to kind of work your way out of those situations in a way that's safe. Today, though, we're actually going to be taking a closer look at green flags and things that you actually want to look for and to honor within your partnerships that are great signs of emotional safety and signs that using fertility awareness in your partnership is probably going to be a safe idea, and it's kind of part of the process of factoring in whether fertility awareness is a good match for you. The first thing that we're talking about is emotional safety. Now, you may have heard of the concept of emotional intelligence, but we're talking more specifically about emotional safety within the context of an intimate partnership. And so emotional safety is a feeling where you're secure enough to truly express yourself with someone and show up as your most authentic self. And obviously, it is very important to have emotional safety when we're talking about an intimate partnership, right? Where we're going to be using some method of birth control. Having this element is so key because it's really important with fertility awareness to be able to show up in a very open, honest, and vulnerable way with your partner, and to have that vulnerability cared for and honored and respected in a very compassionate way, as opposed to having, that vulnerability taken advantage of or boundaries taken advantage of and things like that. So it's something that is absolutely vital to fertility awareness specifically, because in the structure of using fertility awareness as natural birth control, it's a very different approach than if you're using something like condoms or barrier methods or hormonal birth control. With something like hormonal birth control, technically the person taking the hormonal birth control would be safe for unprotected sex at any point, day or night, regardless of what day of the month it is, what day of the pill pack it is, or let's say that they, have an IUD or something like that. They'd be safe for unprotected sex at any time, as long as obviously the IUD is correctly placed, as long as they're taking their pills, according to instructions and things like that. However, obviously, we know that there's many reasons why people prefer to not take hormonal birth control or have IUDs or rely on condoms. There's all kinds of valid reasons why you would not want to do those things and why you would prefer to use fertility awareness. But the key difference here is that with fertility awareness, it is kind of the opposite. You're not safe to have unprotected at any point in your cycle. And there is a specific time in each unique cycle where you'd have a fertile window, wherein you'd need to avoid unprotected sex during that fertile window. However, during your infertile days in the cycle, you would be safe for unprotected instead. And so it really requires not only a high degree of attentiveness in terms of your observations of your biomarkers and you charting those biomarkers accurately, but also a high degree of honesty, openness, and communication with your partner so that you're really on the same page about where you are in your cycle. Is today a day that's safe for unprotected or not? And so it's a very different dynamic that requires a lot of open communication and therefore emotional safety so that you feel confident and open to talk about these things. The next green flag is trust. Being able to feel that sense of trust with your partner is so incredibly vital because we're trusting that our partner will, again, be on the same page as us and honor our needs to have certain types of intimacy at certain points in the cycle, depending what's going on with your unique biomarkers on any given day or time in the cycle. There are times in the cycle, according to your body's real-time biomarkers, where you're going to have days of infertility, where getting pregnant is either extremely unlikely or impossible. or times of fertility when getting pregnant is a lot more likely and very possible. And so it's very important to not only be masterful when you're actually doing the charting, but to also have that trust in your partner that they're literally not going to finish inside of you on a day that would be fertile, because that would be totally breaking one of the rules for fertility awareness. And so we need to have that trust in our partner that they're going to be honoring the rules and that you're honoring the rules as well, and having that mutual, trust to share in that responsibility as you go through your cycle. The third green flag is open communication about fertility awareness, about intimacy, boundaries, needs, and preferences. With fertility awareness, it's important, first of all, for everyone involved to have informed choice about how fertility awareness actually works, and to have, therefore, informed consent about whether or not to rely on this. You can't possibly be informed if you don't know how this works. And so this is why it's so important for our partners to be involved to some degree in the learning process, so that you can have these open and honest discussions with them about what's going on with your chart and which days are safe and unsafe for certain types of intimacy. Now, I'm not saying that your partner needs to be able to chart to the same degree that you'll need to be able to. They don't necessarily need to be able to mark your chart. They don't necessarily need to be able to identify types of cervical mucus. If they want to learn all that stuff, awesome, that's totally great. But they certainly don't need to in order to still have informed choice and informed consent about how FAM works. They just need to be in the loop about the general physiology of the cycle and the general way that fertility awareness functions as a method in order to successfully avoid pregnancy. Now, during your fertile window, for example, the key part about communication, about your needs, your boundaries, your preferences, it's very, very important, especially for people who ovulate and menstruate and us as women, to be very clear about those boundaries, because so many of us carry different forms of trauma. And with fertility awareness, it's so key to honor that trust and those boundaries and to not push past those boundaries, especially when you're in a vulnerable time in the cycle where you actually are fertile, depending on what type of cervical mucus you have. If, for example, you've agreed with your partner, hey, today is not safe for unprotected intimacy, but instead, let's just do like non-PIV stuff instead, it would be a serious violation of trust if the partner halfway through just decided to move on to unprotected intimacy. That would be a massive red flag. That would be, a huge issue. And so it's very important to be able to talk about these things with your partner outside of the heat of the moment, so that you're totally on the same page and you're not waiting until the heat of the moment to say, whoa, slow down, here's what we're doing, or oh my gosh, no, sorry for the miscommunication, I forgot to mention this. It's very important and absolutely critical to just talk about it beforehand so that there isn't any possibility of miscommunication. I always recommend as an educator that the default assumption should be that you are fertile. The default assumption should be that pregnancy is possible, unless you've established otherwise in a clear verbal or written way of communication. So literally either talking about it or sending a message or something, sending a text, and having it be very clear that, it actually is a safe day for unprotected intimacy. Sometimes when I hear of people communicating with their partners about, safe versus unsafe days, I've heard about instances where like, oh, I have like this pillow with a heart on it, and when the heart is showing, then it's safe. When it's flipped over and the heart's not showing, then it's unsafe. And in my opinion, that is playing with fire. I would not recommend doing that. I would not recommend relying on little signs like that, especially something like a pillow that can easily be knocked off a chair and then put back on the chair incorrectly. That is just, to me, you're asking for a miscommunication and potentially a situation where you may need to rely on emergency contraception because of a misunderstanding that could have been completely preventable. So I would recommend just really sticking with clear verbal or written communication. And again, being an adult and having that sense of shared mutual responsibility about intimacy with your partner. If you are in a situation where you're being intimate with your partner, you should be able to have that sense of honesty, trust, and emotional safety where you can talk about these things and be clear about them. The fourth green flag is a sense of shared mutual responsibility when it comes to birth control. So kind of a shared culture within the partnership that the concept of birth control is not a burden just for the person who's charting. It should be something that is shared as a responsibility between two adults and two people who are being intimate, who both understand that this is a situation that requires at least two people, right? And in the case of a potential pregnancy, again, two people at least are required for that. And so it's critical to approach that with that sense of respect and compassion and recognize that it takes you to tango. And this is not something that is just a burden for people who ovulate and menstruate and us as women. This is something that everyone is responsible for. And so that means that we're talking about things throughout the cycle, we're talking about intimacy. If you're going to be relying on something like barrier methods in the fertile window, understanding that at that point you're no longer really relying on fertility awareness, right? Because if you're having PIV intimacy during the fertile window and relying on barrier methods, by definition, you're then going down in efficacy from up to 99.6% effective with FAM down to maybe 98% effective with condoms that are used correctly, and or even higher if you're utilizing both condoms and withdrawal. But the key thing here is that, again, this is a shared mutual responsibility where the responsibility is not all on one partner. And this is something that I think, honestly, a lot of our partners want to help out with. They want to contribute to this. There's a really excellent initiative going on now. I believe they're called the Male Contraceptive Initiative. They have a whole podcast called Intended. It's an excellent podcast that explores in depth about how for, I think, over 50 years, probably if not more, there's been a lot of interest in male contraceptive options for people with penises. At the same time, there has not been a lot of development on the part of pharmaceutical companies to actually get different methods besides condoms, withdrawal, and vasectomies into the research and into development. And so it's an area where I think a lot of our partners are really excited to, show up for us. They're very willing to show up for us. They want to help. What I've seen surveys where it's something like 80% of partners wish that they, could help in a more, constructive way that would, contribute even more to success in terms of pregnancy avoidance. So I think it's definitely an area where, there's lots of room for connection with our partners in this way, but it takes that change in dynamic that is a lot different from the expectations that go along with hormonal birth control. It's a lot different, but at the same time, I see time and time again people reporting increased measures of happiness in their relationships and just feeling a lot more confident with using FAM as birth control when they learn with their partners, because again, you're building up confidence together, you're kind of working together to have that support system with your partner, and again, that sense of shared mutual responsibility. Which leads us to the fifth and last green flag, for today at least, which is a willingness to be involved in the learning process by our partners. So this is something where the degree of involvement can shift and change depending, how much you want your partner to be involved and how much they want to be involved. But I really emphasize this, especially when working with my clients, and I'm going to outline to you why. I emphasize learning with your partner because one of the biggest reasons is I want to have it be less stressful for you, the charter. And I want you to really let that sink in, because a lot of people come to me and they tell me, oh, I want to learn charting myself, and then I'm going to tell my partner about it after. I want to learn this by myself, and then I'm going to show my partner how much I know it by being able to summarize it for my partner and tell them later. And I want to emphasize to you and really impress upon you that by doing that, you're putting even more of a burden on yourself to master something very quickly that you're just starting to learn, at first. And so I think it's a bit of an unrealistic expectation to be able to teach your partner FAM when you yourself are just starting to learn it. It's a lot easier for both of you to learn it together and to work through a course together so that, again, you're on the same page from day one. I've found that couples and partners who participate in my course and who work through the course content together, again, I'm not saying that they need to work through every single element exactly the same as you are, but what I am saying is they can certainly be very included in the course content. What I've found is those who include their partners tend to learn FAM a lot faster, with way more confidence, and they're able to just rely on it sooner and much more effectively. Why? Because we're really eliminating miscommunications. We're setting people up for success by having informed consent before they start to rely on this, and everyone just feels a lot more comfortable to talk about the concepts of fertility awareness going in if they are informed from day one. And again, this is also reducing for you that burden of having to learn this in isolation all by yourself, just with me, your educator, and then going off and having to summarize it and paraphrase it for your partner. That can add a lot of stress. I've seen it add a lot of stress for my clients who have tried it that way. And I tell ya, it's just easier typically to include your partner. So how might that look? It could literally look like you sitting down with your partner and working through the course content together. It could also look like you signing up for the course and I just give you an account and I give your partner an account. And that would be, free, included as part of your course package, where you're both able to, go through the course content together on your own time. It's a great option for people who live apart or who have different, schedules. It's a phenomenal way to both be involved and to both be on the same page as you're working through the course content. A third way to be involved is to have your partner attend the one-on-one sessions with me as well, and to really take that as an opportunity to ask questions one-on-one and to just ensure that you both feel like you're on the same page with the content. So I hope these green flags kind of open up your eyes a little bit for what to look for in your intimate partnership in terms of whether or not fertility awareness is something that can work for you. I think that going into fertility awareness as informed as possible is the best way to get set up for success with it so that you know what to expect. But your partner also really deserves to know what to expect as well, and keeping them in the dark about it, or, like I said, trying to summarize things for them later, it can be a situation that kind of breeds this sense of like, oh, I don't know what's going on, I don't know how this is going to work, a sense of nervousness, and we just really want everyone to have that confidence and to feel assured, right? Isn't that something that we all want? I think about it from the other perspective of if the situation was flipped around, where if my partner was learning a method of pregnancy avoidance that I had no involvement with, I would want to know, like, wait, how does this work? How do I know that I can trust this? How do I know what this even is? And if I'm not being, kept in the loop about that, if I'm not, understanding how that method works along the way, just like they are, I would not feel reassured. I'd feel very anxious and nervous. And so I think that it's just only fair to include our partners and to give them the option and to really invite them in to learn with us. If you're looking for more context, if you are looking for red flags to avoid, in addition to these green flags to look for, please check out my other video about this topic. I will put a screenshot of it right here and you can look for it on my channel. It's a great complement, I think, to this video to have, again, more of the full picture to ensure that you're going into this practice of fertility awareness as safely as possible. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Once again, I am a certified fertility awareness educator, and so if you're looking for guidance on how to learn fertility awareness, and if you're serious and if you're in a point where you want to take the next steps to actually master this method as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible, I invite you to reach out and schedule a free one-on-one call with me. You can do so in the description down below with that link, as well as in the comment section with the link up top. And I look forward to meeting with you. I love to meet with people and just walk through all the course components. It's really to ensure that you, again, have fully informed choice about what the course includes and how that high level of support can look when working with a certified educator. So keep in mind that fertility awareness is up to 99.6% effective, but there's a little asterisk. When learned with a certified educator and when attending your follow-ups with your certified educator, we don't have statistics on how effective fertility awareness is with self-teaching alone. And so it's very important to, in my opinion, take the easier route and work with a certified educator. It'll save you months of stress and extra research, and it'll just really help to, lift that off of your back. I also encourage people to please reach out to me to connect, because I also offer flexible payment schedules as well. It's something that I don't want to be a barrier of entry for people. So if that's a concern for you at all, please just reach out, schedule a one-on-one with me, and what we can do is talk about that one-on-one and find something that will fit your budget so that you're very comfortable with it. Okay? All right, everyone. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you watch this. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.